Rodrigo Duterte believed he could eventually walk free while awaiting trial. But today, the ICC delivered a crushing message to the former Philippine president. Judges in The Hague denied his release request, calling him a possible flight risk as international pressure intensifies and the controversial war on drugs case moves closer toward one of history's biggest trials. The International Criminal Court has delivered another major blow to former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte. And this time, the decision is sending shockwaves far beyond The Hague. ICC judges have officially denied Duterte's request for temporary release, ruling that he remains a potential flight risk while preparations for his crimes against humanity trial continue. The decision instantly became one of the biggest international political developments involving the Philippines today, fueling intense debate across legal circles, government institutions, and Duterte's massive support base. For many observers, this ruling changes everything because for the first time since Duterte to ICC custody, the court has made it unmistakably clear that it intends to move aggressively toward trial and that judges are not convinced Duterte can be trusted outside detention. The ruling came from ICC Trial Chamber 3 after Duterte's legal team pushed for temporary release based on humanitarian and medical grounds. Lawyers argued that the former president's age and physical condition justified conditional freedom while the case moved forward. But the judges rejected those arguments. Instead, the chamber concluded that Duterte still presents what it described as a real and substantial risk of fleeing proceedings if released from detention. That single line has now become the center of global headlines because it signals something extremely important. The ICC believes Duterte could attempt to avoid the trial entirely. According to the chamber, several factors influenced the decision. Judges pointed to Duterte's repeated public statements questioning the legitimacy of the ICC, his refusal to recognize the court's authority, and the enormous political network that still surrounds him inside the Philippines. The court essentially concluded that Duterte possesses both the influence and motivation to evade proceedings if given the opportunity, and politically, the key finding is explosive. For months, Duterte allies projected confidence that the former president could eventually secure conditional release while waiting for trial proceedings to formally begin. Supporters repeatedly emphasized Duterte's advanced age, his health condition, and what they described as weak legal grounds for continued detention. But the ICC clearly disagrees. The judges stated that medical evaluations reviewed by the court did not establish exceptional circumstances requiring release. They also argued that detention conditions in The Hague remain appropriate and medically supervised. As a result, Duterte will remain inside the ICC detention facility in Scheveningen while the case accelerates into its next stage. And that next stage is coming very quickly. The ICC has already scheduled another major conference for May 27, where prosecutors, defense lawyers, and victims' representatives will meet to discuss the future direction of the case. That hearing is expected to focus on trial preparation, evidence disclosure, witness coordination, procedural motions, and possible timelines for the opening of formal proceedings. Legal analysts believe the conference may provide the clearest indication yet of how fast the ICC intends to move. Some observers now believe prosecutors could push for trial proceedings to begin sooner than originally expected. And that is exactly why today's ruling matters so much. Because denying temporary release is not just a procedural decision, it is also a signal that the ICC is tightening control over the Duterte case instead of slowing it down. The charges facing Duterte remain among the most controversial in modern Philippine political history. ICC prosecutors accuse the former president of crimes against humanity linked to thousands of deaths during the anti-drug campaign that defined both his presidency and his earlier years as mayor of Davao City. The prosecution argues that the killings were not isolated incidents, but part of a larger organized campaign carried out under state authority. Duterte has consistently denied those allegations. He insists the anti-drug campaign was necessary to combat criminality and protect public safety. Duterte supporters continue to argue that the former president acted lawfully while confronting narcotic syndicates and violent crime across the country. But the ICC prosecution sees the situation very differently. Investigators claim evidence gathered over several years points towards systematic abuses tied directly to anti-drug operations. That legal battle is now entering a far more serious stage. And the political pressure surrounding the case is growing rapidly. Inside the Philippines, reactions to the ruling have been intense. Critics of Duterte say the ICC's decision proves the court is confident in its evidence and determined to pursue accountability regardless of political pressure. Human rights organizations immediately welcomed the ruling, arguing that continued detention prevents interference with witnesses and strengthens confidence in the judicial process. But Duterte allies reacted with outrage. Supporters accused the ICC of politically targeting the former president and interfering in Philippine sovereignty. Several Duterte loyalists argued that the ruling reflects international bias against the Philippines and its former leadership. The controversy is also colliding with an increasingly unstable political climate in Manila because the ICC pressure is no longer focused solely on Duterte himself. Attention is rapidly expanding toward former security officials and political allies connected to the anti-drug campaign. And no figure has become more central to that controversy than Senator Ronald Beto de la Rosa. De la Rosa served as Duterte's police chief during the height of the anti-drug operations and remains one of the former president's closest political allies. This week, tensions surrounding De La Rosa escalated dramatically. Their authorities intensified efforts linked to ICC-related arrest developments. The senator briefly appeared publicly before disappearing again amid fears of possible enforcement actions. That development triggered chaos inside political circles. Government officials confirmed that law enforcement agencies remain prepared to act on international legal obligations connected to ICC proceedings. At the same time, De La Rosa has strongly denied wrongdoing and insists all anti-drug operations conducted under his leadership followed Philippine law. Still, the political implications are enormous because every new ICC development appears to tighten pressure on Duterte's wider political network. And many observers believe today's ruling against Duterte sends a warning to his allies as well. The message appears simple. The ICC is not backing down. That perception is becoming stronger with each passing week, especially after the court rejected Duterte's arguments challenging ICC jurisdiction. Earlier this year, that earlier ruling already removed one of the biggest legal defenses available to the former president. Now, with judges refusing temporary release, the momentum appears to be shifting even further toward prosecutors. Internationally, the Duterte case has become one of the most closely watched ICC proceedings in years. Foreign governments, legal scholars, diplomats, and rights organizations are all closely monitoring developments in The Hague. For many international observers, the case represents a major test of whether global accountability mechanisms can successfully prosecute powerful political figures accused of overseeing state violence. The Philippines itself remains deeply divided. Some Filipinos continue to strongly support Duterte and defend the anti-drug campaign as necessary for national security. Others believe the ICC proceedings represent a historic opportunity for justice after years of controversial killings. That division is becoming increasingly visible. Across Philippine politics, the Duterte family remains enormously influential despite the legal crisis surrounding the former president. Vice President Sara Duterte continues to maintain a powerful political base nationwide, even as separate political controversies continue unfolding around her administration role. Meanwhile, tensions between Duterte and Terra allies and the administration of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. are growing more intense. Political observers say the ICC case is now intersecting directly with broader domestic power struggles involving the Senate, law enforcement institutions, impeachment controversies, and control over future elections. That is one reason today's ruling is receiving such enormous attention, because the consequences extend far beyond the courtroom. The ICC decision affects not only Duterte's future, but potentially the future direction of Philippine politics itself. And now the world is watching what happens next. Another important detail from today's Development is the language used by ICC judges regarding Duterte's public statements. The chamber specifically referenced comments made by the former president questioning the authority and legitimacy of the court. According to legal analysts, that detail matters enormously because judges appear to interpret Duterte's rhetoric as evidence that he may refuse to cooperate if released. That finding could influence future decisions throughout the case. It may also complicate additional requests from the defense moving forward. Some legal experts now believe the defense team could shift strategy entirely following today's ruling. Instead of focusing heavily on release requests, lawyers may now concentrate on delaying procedural timelines or challenging evidentiary issues ahead of trial preparations. But even there, prosecutors appear increasingly confident. Recent ICC filings suggest investigators believe they possess extensive documentary evidence, witness testimony, and operational rec. Odds tied to the anti-drug campaign. The prosecution has also indicated that additional witnesses may still come forward as proceedings continue. That possibility alone creates significant political anxiety for Duterte allies because every new witness could potentially introduce more damaging allegations into the public record. At the same time, security concerns surrounding witnesses remain extremely sensitive. Human rights organizations have repeatedly warned about intimidation risks connected to individuals cooperating with international investigations. That is another reason the ICC likely considered continued detention necessary. Preventing interference with witnesses is often viewed as a major factor in detention decisions involving high-profile political figures. And Duterte's continued influence inside the Philippines remains substantial. Even from detention in The Hague, the former president continues to dominate political discussions across the country. His supporters organize rallies. His critics demand accountability, and every ICC ruling immediately transforms into national political debate. Now, attention turns toward May 27. That conference could become one of the most important moments in the case so far, because it may finally reveal how close the ICC is to launching full trial proceedings against one of the most controversial leaders in modern Southeast Asian history. For Duterte supporters, the latest ruling represents another painful setback. For critics, it represents proof that international legal pressure is intensifying. But regardless of political opinion, one reality is now becoming impossible to ignore. The ICC is moving forward, and after today's decision denying temporary release, the court has made it clear that it sees Rodrigo Duterte not as a former head of state deserving special treatment, but as a defendant facing one of the most serious international criminal cases in the world. For now, Duterte remains detained in The Hague. Request for release has been denied. The trial preparations are accelerating, and the political pressure surrounding the Philippines is growing larger by the day.